The shuttle docked with a sound like a metal sigh. Nora Hill picked up her bag and walked out into the corridor of Reach Academy. The air hit her first. It was thin and carried a sharp smell, something between copper and rain. The lights along the ceiling ran in colors she did not have names for. The floor vibrated faintly under her shoes, a low hum that did not stop. She was 16 years old. She had never been this far from Earth in her life that a small screen on the wall showed her room number and her class assignment. She memorized both, then followed the arrows on the floor. Every other student she passed was taller than her, or wider, or had more limbs than she expected. One creature moved on 4 legs and had no visible head. It walked past her without slowing down. Nora kept moving. The classroom was large. The seats were arranged in a curved row, each one built for a different body shape. Hers was at the far end, small and almost out of place, like someone had added it at the last moment. She sat down and placed her notebook on the desk. Paper. Real paper. A few of the students near her glanced at it the way people glance at something they do not understand. Instructor Galek entered without any announcement. He was large and gray, built like a slow-moving wall, and he spoke in a voice that came from deep in his chest. He called the names on his list. When he reached hers, he said it correctly on the first try. She noted that. The student next to her was Rel. Crothy species. 6 limbs, 2 of which rested folded across his chest like arms. His compound eyes did not move the way human eyes moved. He looked at everything at once. When Galek finished the roll call, Rel turned slightly toward Nora and spoke. The academic failure rate for humans at mixed institutions is 94%, he said. That data is from the last 12 years. He did not say it with cruelty. He said it the way someone reads a weather report. Nora took out her pen and wrote it down in her notebook. Rel watched her write it. He said nothing more. The classroom displays lit up with the day's material. Nora could see some of it, but the upper frequency colors were invisible to her, which meant roughly a third of the content was just white space. She adjusted her handheld translator, held it up, and used it to capture what she was missing. Then she wrote notes by hand while the other students used their built-in neural links or iFeed devices. From 3 seats away, a student named Toon watched her write. Toon was Veloci, small, pale, with a constant low hum that came from somewhere inside. Toon's kind had once been part of Hive Mind. Toon was not anymore. There was something in the way Toon watched Nora that was not mean, but was not kind either. It was the look of someone studying a process they did not fully trust. Sova sat 2 seats to Nora's left. Drinathy, smooth, blue-gray skin, wide, flat eyes, hands with too many fingers. She had not looked at Nora once. After class, Nora found a bench near the corridor junction and opened her notebook. She had 4 pages of notes and a growing list of things she still did not understand. A shadow stopped in front of her. She looked up. It was another human. Older, maybe 18 or 19. He had the look of someone who had been here long enough to stop being surprised by anything. Ren, he said. Nora. He sat down on the far end of the bench. Year 1. Yes. He looked at her notebook. You write on paper. I think better when I write. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, they're going to test you. Not the way teachers test you. The other way. They want to know how fast you give up. Most humans give up fast. That is the data they all carry around in their heads. He stood up. Just so you know. He walked away. Nora looked down her notebook. At Rel's statistic. 94%. She turned to a new page and started a list. She wrote at the top, things I need to figure out. Below it she wrote, atmospheric display calibration, Crothy logic system, Drinathy communication patterns, Veloci thought structure. She wrote until the corridor lights dimmed for the evening cycle. She did not feel ready. She did not feel brave. She felt the way she always felt before something hard, which was like a stone sitting in her chest that had not decided yet whether it was fear or something else. She closed the notebook. Tomorrow she had a group project. Her group was Rel, Sova, and Toon. None of them had spoken to her about it. She had checked the assignment board 3 times, and her name was listed clearly. She picked up her bag. The station hummed around her, full of sounds she did not know, full of species that had been in space longer than her entire civilization had existed. Somewhere far below and far away, Earth was a dot of light she could not see. She walked to her room. She did not cry. She made a list instead. The assignment was posted on everyone's feed. Nora read it from her paper printout because that was faster for her than waiting for the translator to render the display text. The task was simple on the surface. Design a full evacuation plan for a multi-species colony that was facing 3 simultaneous emergency conditions. The team would have 5 days. Presentation was mandatory. Rel opened the first work session by dividing the project into sections. He did it quickly and cleanly, the way someone cuts something with a sharp tool. He gave himself the core logic structure. He gave Sova the communication models. He gave Toon the resource calculations. Then he turned to Nora and said, "You can handle the formatting of the final report." Nora looked at her section. Formatting. "Okay," she said. She finished the formatting work in less than an hour. Then she started reading theirs. She was not looking for problems. She was reading because she wanted to understand how the plan worked. But she found something on a second read. The emergency atmosphere mix they had selected for the evacuation shelters was set to a single standard. One blend for everyone. She checked the colony population in the assignment data. It listed 7 species. At least 3 of them had different atmospheric needs. One species had a known sensitivity to the compound in the standard mix. In a real evacuation, they would not make it to the shelters. Or they would get there and be unable to breathe. She brought it up that evening. The shelter atmosphere mix does not work for all 7 species, she said. Rel looked at her. The margin of error is within acceptable range. The Polhari sensitivity threshold is below your acceptable range by about 40%. Sova did not look up from her screen. The model accounts for variation. It does not account for that one, Nora said. I checked. Toon said gently. The data we used is from Union Standard Emergency Planning. It has been used in 62 prior simulations. Then 62 prior simulations had the same hole in them. Nora said, and O1 spoke. She went back to her room that night and rebuilt the atmospheric section of the plan. She used a database she had found through an old Earth archive link, a collection of disaster relief records from the early days of Earth's international emergency planning, when humans had to figure out how to keep different groups of people alive in the same broken space. The data was old by galactic standards, but the math was the same math. She corrected the shelter mix variables. She ran the model again. The survival rate for the Polhari population went from 61% to 94%. She brought the numbers the next morning. Rel took her printout. He read it. He read it again. His compound eyes did not change expression. He said nothing for a long time. Then he took the page to his own screen and began checking her math. He checked it twice. He did not say she was right. He did not say anything. But when he updated the team's shared model that afternoon, her atmospheric correction was in it. Sova looked at the updated model. Then she looked at Nora. It was the first real eye contact since the project started. On the 5th day, they presented. Galek reviewed each section carefully. At the end, he made a note in his record. He said the atmospheric correction had been the strongest technical element of the presentation. He did not say who had made it, but he looked at Nora once, briefly, before moving on. Outside the room, Rel walked past Nora without speaking, but he had included her numbers. And he had not had to. Nora decided that counted for something, even if he would never say so out loud. That evening she sat in the small meal area near her room and ate alone, as usual. She looked at her list. She crossed off 1 item and added 2 more. It was not a victory exactly, but it was something she had built herself with her own data from a world that the galaxy did not think had anything worth using. She crossed off the item slowly. Then she added, learn Crothy logic system basics. She underlined it twice. Rel found her before class on a Tuesday. He stood in front of her in the corridor and said, I am issuing a logic dual challenge. Formal. Registered with the academy. He paused. You are permitted to decline, but among Crothy, it is considered a statement about your academic confidence. Nora had read about logic duels in the species study section of her orientation packet. She had not expected to be in one. When? She said. This afternoon. She said yes. The dual room was small and looked like a testing chamber, which it was. A moderator set the puzzle on a shared display. The rules were clear, a layered reasoning sequence where each step had to follow from the last, like a chain. First one to break the chain or go silent for more than 30 seconds lost the round. Nora lost the first round in 4 minutes. Not close. Not even interesting. Rel moved through the logic branches the way water moves through a pipe. No hositashchen. No wrong turns. Nora got stuck on the third step and could not find the path out. The moderator marked it. Rel won. Nora asked for the rules documentation in writing. She went home and read it for 3 hours. She lost the second duel the next afternoon. 7 minutes this time. She made it to step 6 before the chain broke. She asked for a record of where she had gone wrong. Rel gave it to her without comment. She lost the third duel on step 8. She came back the following morning and asked for another. Rel looked at her for a moment. Something changed slightly in the way he held himself. Something small. Then he said, same time. The fourth duel went to step 9. Nora broke the chain on the 10th step, but she had been close, genuinely close, and she knew it because she felt the moment she could almost see the next branch. After the round, Rel sat still for a few seconds. Why do you return? He said. He did not sound annoyed. He sounded like someone asking a real question. Nora said, I almost had you on step 9 yesterday. I want to know why I didn't. He was quiet. Then he pulled up the record of her step 9 move and showed her the branch she had missed. He explained it in terms she could follow, which meant he had adjusted his language for her without being asked. She wrote it down. They were not friends after that session. She did not think Rel had a concept of friendship that matched her own. But he did not walk past her in the corridor without a small acknowledgement anymore, a slight angle of his upper limbs that she had learned meant something between recognition and respect. Words spread in the small way that words spread in schools. Students noticed that the human girl had gone back for a fourth duel. Some thought she was being foolish. But 2 other students asked Nora to study with them for a logic component in their own coursework. She said yes. Gaelic noticed. He noticed most things. That night, Nora sat with her notes and thought about step 9. She thought about the branch she had missed. She drew it out on paper. She saw it now. She had been thinking about the straight line when the answer lived 1 step to the side. She thought that was probably true about more things than logic puzzles. She added a new line to her list. Ask Sova about the Drenithy pattern model she mentioned in class. Below it, she wrote, Stop trying to solve things the fast way. She read that line twice. Then she underlined it. Nobody planned it. It just happened twice, then 3 times, and then it was a thing that happened. Nora went to the observation deck late at night because her room felt small and the window there was wide, and she could see a lot of stars at once. It helped her think. She would sit with her notebook and write and not talk to anyone. Sova was there the first night. She was sitting at the far end of the long window bench, very still, looking out. She did not look at Nora. Nora did not interrupt. They sat in the same silence for about an hour, and then Nora went to bed. The second night, the same thing happened, but on the third night, Sova spoke. You come here to think, Sova said. It was not a question. Yes, Nora said. Same, said Sova. That was all for that night. But the following week, Sova said, without looking away from the window, the first in a line always carries the most weight. My family line has not had a student at this academy before me. Nora thought about her own family. Her mother getting up before the sun to take the early shift. Her father saying she would not last out here. Not because he wanted to hurt her, but because he was afraid and did not know how to say it a different way. Mine either, Nora said. Sova looked at her. Humans have short family records. We remember enough, Nora said. Sova turned back to the window, but she nodded just slightly. The semester review exam came on a cold morning. The room was timed and quiet. Nora sat 3 seats from Sova. She was working through her own questions when she heard the sound, or rather the absence of one. Sova had stopped moving. Completely. Her stylus was down. Her eyes were open but fixed on the desk in front of her. Nora had read about this. Drenithy called it the still water. Under sudden and unexpected high pressure, the mind locked, like a circuit that had too much running through it and simply stopped rather than burn. There was nothing Nora could do directly. She could not speak. She could not reach across. The exam rules were strict. She did the only thing she could think of. She hummed, very quietly, just barely above silence. 3 notes, low and steady. A pattern her mother used to hum when the house was too loud. She did not know it would work. She did not even know why she did it, but Sova's hand moved. Slowly. Then her stylus came back up. She blinked. She looked at her exam. She began to write. After the exam, in the corridor, Sova stopped beside Nora. You should not have known to do that, Sova said. Her voice was carefully even. I didn't know, Nora said. I just didn't want to watch you drown. Sova was quiet for a while. The corridor moved around them. The sound pattern you used, Sova said, is close to the Drinithy deep water calm frequency. It is used in medical training. She paused. You could not have known that. I didn't, Nora said again. And yet, Sova said. She walked away. But she walked more slowly than usual, and when she reached the end of the corridor, she turned briefly and looked back. It was a small thing, but Nora had learned to read the small things. She added nothing to her list that night. Some things did not need to be written down. Toon asked the question in the middle of a philosophy class, which was either the best or the worst place for it. The class topic was contributions, what each union species brought to the shared structure. The instructor opened the floor. Students spoke about Crothy mathematical systems, Drinithy communication networks, Veloci memory archives. When it came to humans, the room produced careful silence. The instructor asked the question directly. Toon answered it. Humanity has not been in space long enough to contribute anything the Union could not produce without them. Toon's voice was soft. Toon was always soft. It made the words land harder. This is not a criticism. It is simply timing. They are early, Nora said. What did Veloci contribute before they had hive memory? The class went quiet in a different way. Toon looked at her. That time is long past. But it existed, Nora said. Every species had a first era, before the thing that made them known. Humanity's first era is not finished yet. No answer came. The instructor moved the class forward. Later, Toon came to find Nora in the study room. This was unusual. Toon did not often seek people out. Toon sat across from her and was quiet for a moment, arranging something internally before speaking. I want to ask you something honest, Toon said. Okay, Nora said. Do humans know that they will die before they finish the things they begin? Your lifespans are short. Most of what you start will be finished by someone else, or not at all. Do you know this? Nora put her pen down. It was a real question. She could hear that. Toon was not trying to be cruel. Toon was trying to understand something that genuinely did not make sense from outside. Yes, Nora said. We know. And you continue anyway. Yes. Toon waited. Nora said, we hurry. That is the thing. We know we do not have time, so we try to do more with less of it. I think that is where most human things come from. Art, science, stubbornness. She picked up her pen again. We are always running a little behind, and we know it, and we do not stop. Toon sat with that for a long time. Outside the room, the station moved through space the way it always did, slow and enormous and indifferent. The Veloci before hive memory. Toon said finally. They were afraid. I have read the old records. They were afraid of being alone in their own minds. They reached for connection because the alternative was too hard. They built something because they were afraid. Nora said. Yes, that sounds familiar, she said. Toon looked at her. Then Toon did something unexpected. Toon reached across the table and tapped the edge of Nora's notebook once lightly. Among Veloci, it was a gesture of acknowledgement between equals. Nora did not know that, but she felt what it meant. That evening, when the others gathered for a study group, Toon held the door open and waited until Nora caught up before going in. Nobody commented on it, but everyone noticed. The simulation room was bigger than a classroom. It had screens on every wall and a floor grid that tracked movement. Every senior instructor sat in the observation row above. 3 visiting academic observers from other Union worlds sat beside them, there to evaluate the Academy's mixed species program. Nora knew 2 of them had voted against admitting humans in the first place. The scenario began without warning. Colony ship. Structural failure in 2 sections. Atmospheric breach starting in a third, and a medical emergency spreading through the lower decks that affected 3 of the 7 species on board differently. All at once. Clock running. Rel began immediately. He was already sorting variables, already building a response tree, already cutting the problem into branches. It was fast, and it was clean, and it was exactly wrong because the first branch he chose would save the largest number quickly, but it required sealing the lower deck, which was where the medical emergency was, which meant leaving those people behind the sealed door. Sova hit the second decision point and stopped. Not fully, not the way she had stopped in the exam, but close. The fork had too many arms, and they were all weighted equally, and she was searching for the pattern that would tell her which one was true. Toon was looking at both of them and trying to find consensus, a third position that satisfied the logic and the ethics at once, and the clock was moving and no consensus was forming. Nora stopped calculating. She turned to Rel. I need you on atmospheric sequencing. Only that. Give me the numbers for a staged release in sections 2 and 4. Rel looked at her. For a half second he pushed back, not in words, but in posture. Rel, she said, only atmospheric sequencing. I have the rest. He turned to his screen. She hummed 3 notes, low and steady, in Sova's direction. Not loud enough for the room, just enough that Sova's hands moved. Nora looked at Toon. One choice. Seal section 3, reroute medical response to section 5 first, then circle back. Yes or no? Toon did not like one choice. Toon liked full pictures. Yes or no? Nora said again. Steady, not unkind, but firm. Yes, Toon said. They moved that IT was not clean. They lost points on response time in the first wave. They made a suboptimal call on resource distribution in the second. But when the third cascade failure hit, the one that broke every other mixed species team in the room, they were still talking to each other. Still moving. Still a team. The simulation ended in the observation row. One of the visiting observers leaned toward Galek and asked who had made the call to shift from optimization to coordination in the critical window. Galek said the human. The observer said the human. Not a question, not quite surprise. Something between the two. That evening the observation deck was quiet. Nora was already there when the others arrived, not together, just one at a time, each finding a space along the wide window. No one had called a meeting. No one had sent a message. They just came. Rel sat down and after a while said, You made us slower. You were fast in the wrong direction, Nora said. Quiet. Sova said, Same time next semester. Nora looked out at the stars. She thought about the list she had made on her first night. She had not solved everything on it. She had not become like them. She had not learned to think like Rel, or feel the deep water calm like Sova, or carry the long patience of Toon. She had stayed herself. And it had been enough. Yes, she said. The station moved through the dark. The stars did not care about any of it, which was fine. They did not need the stars to care. They had figured out something better. They had figured out each other.